सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Now we'll read the bhashya which we haven't read. ततश्च अव्याकृताद् व्याचिकीर्षित अवस्थातः अन्नात् प्राणः हिरण्यगर्भः ब्रह्मणः ज्ञानक्रियाशक्ति अधिष्ठित जगत् साधारण अविद्याकामकर्म भूत समुदाय बीजांकुरः जगदात्मा अभिजायतेति अनुषंगः. Very brilliant. So, understanding Hiranyagarbha from two standpoints. What is the first standpoint which we just discussed?
Individual.
No, that was the first standpoint, yeah. So I go in a little bit detail. The first standpoint is what? Hiranyagarbha as
Ishvara. The matter, the knowledge.
What is the material here?
Prana.
Yeah. So it is like going around the barn 3 times to find the door, but thankfully we have found the door. Yeah. So Hiranyagarbha as what? Prana. And that prana we saw from 3 standpoints. And what are the 3 standpoints? Yeah. What is Adhidaivikam? What standpoint is that?
The order. Individual. Connectivity.
No, the other one. Yeah. You know, what is Adhidaivikam? You look at the definition. Because I always define the Sanskrit words. That time we have to listen, not even if you don't listen to the Sanskrit word, listen to how I have translated it. Centered on Bhagavan, Adi Daivikam, and that's exactly how it is derived in Sanskrit also. Daivam adhikritya tishtati, centered on, tishtati sits on Bhagavan, meaning doesn't sit on Bhagavan, it is centered on Bhagavan, centered on Daiva, that unknowable, unknown factor here described as that order or that potential, that is called Adhidaivikam. So from that standpoint, define Adhibhautikam. Centered on? Why? Centered on Bhuta. Bhuta becomes Bhautika. This is where the Sanskrit fun comes in. Belonging to the Bhutas, emerging from the Bhutas, Bhautika. Bhuta elements, Bhautika elementals, that which has arisen out of the elements. So Adi Bhautikam means what? Centered on 5 elements. Don't please forget this, because tomorrow I'm going to give a quiz. Yeah. So Adi Daivikam centered on? Ishvara. Yeah, Brahman doesn't do anything. So centered on Adi Daivikam means? Centered on Ishvara. Adi Bhautikam means? Centered on the 5 elements or connected to the 5 elements. Adhyatmika means? On oneself. Which oneself? The one who is identifying with a body, mind, sense complex, that self. Not Atma as in Satchidananda Atma. Okay? Understood? Do we need to revise it again? No. Okay, good. That's what I wanted to hear. All right. So we saw. Now we'll forget even what we were seeing. So we saw Hiranyagarbha from the standpoint of prana from these three aspects. This is not Adi Shankara's Bhashya. Adi Shankara only talks about Hiranyagarbha as the prana and the individual samsaris who are breathing happily ever after. And so we are talking of the intermediary connection itself, because that also came out of Brahman, And so we are seeing these three standpoints. And now for the second definition of what? Hiranyagarbha. And he says that Hiranyagarbha is nothing what we just read. Hiranyagarbha is nothing but Jnana Kriya Shakti Adhishthita. Adhishthita means that equipped with what? Jnana Shakti and then Kriya Shakti. What is Kriya Shakti? Power to create. What is Jnana Shakti? Yeah. So that which is equipped with what? The power of knowledge, the power to create, and who sprouts from that seed. This is the translation. Who sprouts from that bija, that seed which is the cause of all beings. What is the seed that is called the cause of all beings? Brahman. Abba. Very good. Yes. Why? Because the text says what? Tapasa chiyate Brahma. Who gets fat with knowledge and creation? Brahman. So the seed of creation is Brahman. Correct? So for Hiranyagarbha, meaning Ishvara uses this power to create, etc., by fattening up Brahman. Correct? So Brahman becomes the seed that sprouts into all knowledge and action as Hiranyagarbha. Right? At the level of Ishvara, at the level of the Samashti. And Adi Shankara, with a brilliant stroke of the stencil, because that's how they used to write on the palm leaves, says here that at the individual level also there is a seed. What is that seed? Huh? Avidya bija. And if the seed is ignorance, what is the sprout?
Desire.
Yeah, what is the watering? Karma. What is the karma phala? Fruits and flowers. Bitter fruits and sad looking flowers. Belladonna, toxic, even to sleep under it. Yeah, belladonna? Those white flowers, trumpet flower it is called. Yeah, it has enough poison. Not nice. Yeah. And so, this is what it is. So, this is like so you see, simultaneously, that which identifies with the seed of Brahman as all knowledge and all power becomes Ishvara, becomes quote unquote heavy quotes, 6 pairs of quotes. And then what? That which identifies with the a seed of ignorance, what is that? Brahman. That same Brahman identifying with the seed of ignorance, identifying with the ignorance, becomes what? Jiva, Piva, Kliva. Yes. Who is Kliva? The one who clings on to everything. Yeah. Do you see the brilliance of this bhashya here? Just say yes, even if you don't see. Yeah. Do you see that Shankara's brilliance is in using that economy of that one seed talked by the Upanishad to account for both Jiva and Ishvara in one little sentence, which can easily be missed. It's brilliant. So that same seed that becomes fat with happiness, knowledge and power to create, and identifying with this knowledge gains the epithet of all knowledge, all power, all creation. And that same seed at the level of the Jiva, identifying with the ignorance, that same Brahman sprouts into what? Nonsense. Yeah. That's what it is. sprouts into all idiotic desires, and the desires will not keep quiet. The desires needs watering, and the watering is karma. And then the karma makes the desire grow stronger. First it was a small little sprout. Maybe I should go in for that. Oh, yes. Oh, let's stand in line. Apple iPhone. Let's stand in line to get it. And nowadays it comes in various colors, so and various shades. So then shady prospect, So I go and stand in line. That is what? Watering the desire. And then the shop closes. This happens in India a lot. You stand in queue for the bus. And the bus has two fellows operating it. One sitting in the front and one from the back. And the back one is called conductor. Yeah, why? Because he or she conducts herself quite badly vis-a-vis the passenger. And it's not a very good job because they have to click and give tickets, and then nobody has exact change. And in India there is a change problem, and pun intended. And then so every time you have to and you have disgruntled passengers because everybody, he says, I'll give you the change later, And then what? And then he forgets. He or nowadays she also, but mostly he forgets. And then he will and then you have to tap him on the back and you say, I have to get down. And then he'll say, get down at the next stop and walk back because this stop more people will be coming and then I'll give you the change. So like this is all going on. So the conductor is the one who is not very well liked. And the conductor himself is a no job satisfaction, disgruntled fellow because nobody appreciates him, because his job is hard to do. When the bus is full, not by American standards. Indian standard means few people are hanging out of the window, few people on the bus, few people under the bus. Few people hanging out of the non-existent doors. They are just openings because why have a door? People are going to pull it out because that's when the door closes and opens, that's the place for 4 people to stand right there. So no doors, just 2 holes in the beginning and at the end, 2 apertures out of which people are streaming out. Giving a new definition of live streaming. You thought live streaming is this. No, a whole new meaning to live streaming. So because people who are alive are streaming out and in the bus. Yeah. While being alive. Yeah. That is what is called Jivan Mukti. You have taken leave of your senses. That is what is Mukti here. While alive. That is Jivan Mukti. To hang out of the bus literally like that. Ayyo Rama. And then what happened? Then the conductor has to somehow weave his way to the back of the bus where people are streaming out. And poor unappreciated fellow. And then he has to ring the bell twice, meaning it cannot possibly accept even one more jiva on this bus. This bus has to leave now, So that's his job. And abhyasa balena, because of the, this habit. And because of all this disgruntled feeling, even on Sunday when nobody is there on the bus, he sees you in line, and as soon as you come in line, what happened? Ding, ding, and leaving you disgruntled he goes. Because he has the power to, because nobody listens to him on the weekdays. Saturday, Sunday, he's happy. He actually poor fellow gets to sit down, and poor fellow is not bothered so much by the people. Saturday, Sunday, not many people traveling, especially office going time. And he gets to show how powerful he is. Yeah. And you are running to catch the bus. And when you are running to catch the bus, what happens? Ding, ding. The bus goes away. Yeah. That's why you have the karma of missed buses in life. Really and metaphorically, every bus that you wanted has said bus. Enough of you. I don't want you anymore. And then has left you hanging. And how else are you going to get this karma without this is the sprouting of the seed of ignorance, which comes back in this form of missed bus karma, real and metaphorical. So this, So that is what the thing is. So you go and stand in line to get something. This happens at the post office also. And when you come, the lady will smile like this and very friendly, shuts the window. Right when you appear. Why? Yeah. Avidya, kama, karma, shrinkhala, this endless chain. And so then what happens? You don't keep quiet and say, okay, I think Bhagavan doesn't want me to have this iPhone. I think I should just go home and forget the phone, cross out the phone, I should focus on I. And you don't do that. Yeah. You don't do that. You don't say, let's let go of the phone and focus on the I that is sad without the phone. No. What do? I'll try another mall. I'll try another store. So you see how the karma is keeping on burgeoning. This burgeoning karma and the load of the karma, the jiva cannot take. And that's why the jiva is bent at the waist. That's why the jiva has back problem, front problem, side problem, everywhere problem, bent over, in the shape of a permanent question mark. Why am I here? So, and also bent because bent on fulfilling the desires. Bent, pun intended. Yeah, bent out of shape because he was bent. He means jiva as in masculine. She was bent on fulfilling all the desires. Permanently bent into a question mark. What is this life all about? Kathamaham shanti meshyami. When and how will I get ever shanti in this world of bugs and bugging people, in this world of shuttered opportunities and missed buses? This is what is called the fruit of karma, the fruit that keeps on giving. What? Slaps. Yeah, that is what it is. Tight slaps to all hopes. The fruit that keeps on giving. Despair instead of desire. Every desire ends in the dead end of despair. This is the endless chain. Avidya, kama, desire, karma. And then because of karma, what happens? 3-4 slaps. Back to kama, back to karma, and then until the root, which is the avidya, is not interrogated. What happens? Nothing happens. Yeah. Business as usual. Jiva becomes piva, kliva. And this is what he is trying to say, is that it's that same Brahman which gets fat with knowledge, and the conscious entity which identifies with that knowledge as the knower of all that is called Ishvara. And that same consciousness, when it identifies, as it were, with the sad creation and with the sad lot of avidya, and leading to the sprout of kama, and then the flowers and fruits of karma phala. This is what is called jiva, that same Brahman. It's that same consciousness alone, endowed with all knowledge, kriya shakti, ichha shakti, jnana shakti, called Ishvara, Bhagavan. And you say, oh Bhagavan, and then this is the sign for Bhagavan. And then what? And then this one endowed with all ignorance, all desire, useless, senseless, nonsensical desire, and the ability to act. What kind of act? Wrong actions to fulfill those desires is called jiva. So this is the sign for Bhagavan. What is the sign for jiva? This is the sign for jiva. Always, how are you? On the precipice. So means, yatha tatha. Yatha tatha. Little bit better. Oh, everything is going, how are you? Why? Or sometimes, some people are called optimistic. So you ask your optimist, how are you doing? Oh, very well. Oh, good. How is the job? The job is nice, but the boss is terrible. The pay is good, but, the perks are bad. And how are the children? Well, they are great. They're doing wonderful in their studies. Oh, that's great. But they don't listen to a word of what the parents tell them to. They have their own lives. We see them at best in weekends. They don't even come home. Oh, how is the spouse? Well, how much time do you have? You know? This is how it is. Everything is wonderful on the face of it for this unrelenting optimist. You know? But then what? You just have to ask one more question for all the masala to come out, the matter to come out. It's fine. Everything is okay. But, back is hurting. Oh, that's too bad. No, it's all right. It's just that, a few discs have slipped. That's oh, only a few discs. That's okay. Then he consoles himself. Only a few discs, 5 or 6 have slipped. That's okay. Oh, but the rest of them are fine. Well, now that you ask, the rest are herniated. So, means there's some problem with the way they are aligned. This is the situation. Kya kare? This is the Jiva's lot, brilliantly explored here. Because that being with all knowledge is really, so therefore he is setting it up for the Mahavakya, which is that the same you is that Brahman alone, as it were endowed with or identified with ignorance. Now, of course, everyone is dying to ask the question, how did this Brahman become identified with ignorance? Or why did this Brahman become identified with his ignorance? Why didn't this Brahman also join that Brahman and become identified with all knowledge? And my question to you, why should you only ask the questions? My question to you is, how many Brahmas are there? Yeah, how can you say this Brahman and that Brahman then? One Brahman. No, but still you said no, one part of Brahman. I never said one part. Yeah. Be very careful when you quote, because certain things we will never say even in sleep. Yeah, even in sleep if you ask me, the question, are you a part of Brahman? I will say no in sleep. That has been our training under Pujya Swamiji. That is my training. Never to even think that, even accidentally. That is the rigorousness of the teaching. Yeah, you don't even think that by accident. And so what? So there is no two Brahmans. Okay, how come the same Brahman got both confused and knowledgeable? Because the person is so, that pressure of that question. How did the same Brahman get knowledgeable and ignorant? For that I have an answer. A demo. What is this? Flower. Are you now in relation to this flower? Are you knowledgeable?
Yes.
You know flower? Yes. So now I want you to bring out the ignorance of this flower. What is this? You cannot say I don't know. Can you say I don't know? No, because you know it would be a lie. Even if I believe you, you are lying to yourself. So the demonstration of this was supposed to, establish that knowledge and ignorance cannot stay in the same mind at the same time. Can it?
No.
So the question, how come Brahman became knowledgeable and ignorant at the same time? What happened to that question? Poof. So if you ask that question, I will say, how can you be knowledgeable and ignorant about the same flower at the same time? Can you do that? No. So then why are you saying that Brahman can be knowledgeable and ignorant at the same time? Is Brahman ever ignorant? No. Brahman is already all knowledge. Sat, Chit, Ananda, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. So then where did this ignorance come from? Head scratching moment. Where did this ignorance come from? It is called Anadi. Doesn't have a beginning. Oh, I didn't know that. Let me write it down. Okay, then that means that which is beginningless is also endless? No. No, not necessarily. What is the proof? You are the proof. Because before you came to this class, you were ignorant. And now you say, I'm no longer ignorant. You are the proof. You don't have to go beyond you. And hopefully you will not say, I am ignorant and knowledgeable. I am whole and I am fragmented. Yeah, this is called what? Duality in triplicate. Yeah. So, therefore, knowledge can rest in a conscious being. Ignorance really is, is if you say it's always there, that's also not a correct answer. It is as though there. Just like darkness is as though there. Why is it as though there? Because when light comes, where is the darkness? Like the Lord Sun who is searching for Miss Ratri. Who is Miss Ratri? Miss Night. We have a children's story that he is searching for this elusive lady who doesn't like him and who doesn't like to look at him. And her name is Ratri, night. And wherever he goes with his 7 chariot drawn magnificent sun chariot, from east to west and west to east he goes, doesn't find Miss Ratri, because wherever he goes, he is told that she just left. She just left. Where is she now? She is in India. Oh, let me hurry up and go there. And he goes to India. Where is she? Oh, she just went to San Francisco. So like that, so you cannot never establish darkness. You can't. Why? Because that which is dismissed by light doesn't have an existence on its own. There is no such thing as darkness. Think about it. Darkness is not an entity. What about black hole? That also admits light. They have admitted it now. Yeah. What was originally thought to swallow up light now says that light comes through it. Stephen Hawking said that. There may be other things that he said about Ishvara which we don't agree with, but this part is brilliant, because that's why he said even the black hole which swallows up everything else, this dark mass of nothingness that swallows everything else, lets in light, because what comes out of the black hole is radiation, which is light. That's why it's got the epithet Hawking's radiation. Fantastic. So this really says what the Vedic people were saying all along, that there is no such thing called darkness. And if darkness, that's why darkness is very popular to equate darkness with ignorance. Because there is no such thing, really speaking, as ignorance. When we say anadi, beginningless, that doesn't mean that it has an existence. Because if it is always there and if it is existent, it cannot be made to go away. Yeah. If it is non-existent, we need not be here week after week. So what is its status? Is there? Is not there? Is there? Is experienced? So we have to constrain to say is there, but that's not the whole truth, so it's not there. Everything that's experienced is not real. Correct? Yeah. It's not real. So we have to see whether ignorance is here to stay. No. Because clarity grows, ignorance goes. And so therefore what? Ignorance is not here to stay. That means it is not real. Because there is only one place occupied by one thing which is all existent. What is that? Occupy Sat. Sat. Sat alone is. So that place of Sat, which never goes away, which is unchanging, which is not, which cannot come to an end, which doesn't have a beginning, which is the same in all 3 periods of time, which is not negatable. This is Sat. That is alone existent. Existence in the form of the existent one is called Ishvara. That's what it is. That existence doesn't go anywhere. Is not under duress of being destroyed ever. And that existence is all knowledge, which is equated here to light. Meaning wherever there is light, there can be no ignorance, no darkness of ignorance can even stay for 2 minutes. Ignorance cannot say, let me at least finish my coffee. I'm going, but I just want to finish my coffee. No chance. As soon as knowledge comes, the ignorance has to beat a retreat. It's not that there is a time gap between gaining the knowledge and then giving an eviction notice to ignorance and waiting for it to vacate the top story. No. There is no time gap. Like someone who is not paying rent. You give the eviction. There are some laws to follow. If you own a house and you're renting it out, you can't just go and throw their things out. You have to first give them a notice, then you have to give them eviction notice, and even eviction notice, they have certain rights. They are given 10 days or 1 week to 15 days to pack up and leave. That's not the case of this eviction. The Mahavakya is an eviction notice to ignorance with immediate effect. Yeah. Immediately gone. Zero. Not there. And therefore what? This is why we are in business. Yeah. If there was a time gap, we would have folded up long ago. We are not folding up because why there is no gap between the gain of the knowledge and the banishment of the ignorance? Because that which the gain of which knowledge, that knowledge which reveals you as you are, and you happen to be self-revealing. So you don't have to be established. You already are there, and you are already existent. You are already Sat. You are already all knowledge. You are already limitless. And therefore what? Therefore what does this knowledge do? Remove the weed of ignorance. Remove the weed of desire. Uproot that weed which grew by mistake, identifying with the ignorance. But why did I identify with the ignorance? Again, if you ask that, then I'll have to say that you did not really identify with the ignorance. As though, Anishaya shochati muhyamanah. Later on, this same Upanishad is going to say, giving the imagery of the two birds. One bird is the Isha bird, and the other bird is what? Anisha bird. Yeah. And the Anisha bird is what? The one that grieves because it is not Isha. Who is grieving? Isha is grieving, thinking I am Anisha. What to do? This is a very peculiar problem. It's like the person is crying because they are robbed while surrounded by all their treasures. I'm robbed. I don't have any money. Everything is gone. But look, it's all here. No, it's gone. They are convinced that a series of robbers have come and robbed them. Robbed them completely. They have picked the place clean. I'm here. Oh, Lord, help me. Give me food. Give me this. Give me some more money. In fact, even the prayer is all wrong. Give me food. When surrounded by food, they say, give me food. Give me money. When surrounded by all their riches, because they are convinced that they are robbed. Give me some, help. In fact, what should they say? Give me the buddhi to see that I am sitting on a mine of treasures. Give me the subuddhi, sadbuddhi. What is sadbuddhi? To see that this buddhi is just sat alone. Give me the sadbuddhi to see that I am that sat. That is what one should pray for. Instead, one prays for, I don't have this, I don't have that. So in the case of the person who feels a sense of lack because they are robbed, when they are not robbed, what do you need to do? You need to take them to a psychotherapist, because really speaking, this is mithya within mithya. This is pratibhasikam. And when the psychotherapist, when the psychotherapist sees them, the psychotherapist will say that, that this is a disorder. And this is actually within the order of the psychological order. Even disorder is part of the order. And so through therapy, they understand that what they had done is a mistaken identification with the one that was robbed. This is what the thing is. So the sense of lack is not really there. So if it's a severe case of, hallucinations, you need a psychotherapist. If it's a garden variety sense of feeling robbed and cheated and a sense of lack, what do you need? The Shruti as the therapist. Vedanta is super therapy, really. Because even the therapist has to come to Vedanta, to be a good therapist. And so therefore, this is the whole situation. So from the feeling of lack, you can give this example of the one who is convinced I am robbed when they are surrounded by riches. And then another example that is often given is that story of the pauper who is really the prince. Yeah. And there is an ancient Indian story also like this, that there was some kind of a war. The foreign, the neighboring kingdom was waging war, and the loyal minister wrapped the baby who was the heir to the throne in some leaves and put it in some kind of a basket of recyclable leaves, etc., and then sent it through a maid servant to safety, so that nursemaid would take care of the prince in waiting until this whole thing resolved. And so the minister also went into hiding, and then this nursemaid also went off with a baby, and nobody suspected her. She was carrying a basket of dried leaves. Who will check her at the checkpoint? So she escaped with the prince, and the prince was brought up in this with this nursemaid, and the nursemaid being poor, she also fell into hard times, and the prince, the quote-unquote prince, this boy became an urchin, not enough to eat at home, would gleefully greet every garbage can and pick out of it anything that was there. Then 6 years later, the minister also, and the nursemaid also had to move many times. She couldn't keep in touch. Her phone was not working properly. She couldn't. The text messages were not received. Then what happened? Then somehow the minister tracks this nursemaid down and says, "Where is our prince?" And the nursemaid is very ashamed of herself. She says, "I don't know what to do. I have fallen into hard times. I have raised him the best I could, but look, there he is." And the minister is horrified because he only sees the legs of the boy. The rest of him is in the garbage can, happily grazing inside the garbage can. And he says, "What? How did our prince?" And the nursemaid said, "I'm really sorry. This is the best I could do." Says, "I'm going to take him right now." She says, "Yes, let's go back. Everything is quiet." And he says, "You also come along. Let's go back to the palace." And then he sends the town crier in the meantime with the dindima, the proclamation. What's the proclamation? That the prince has been found. Now we are going to enthrone this prince. We are going to bring him back to the city, crown him as the heir apparent, and then, I'm going to rule with him so that until he attains a majority. And so the loyal minister, while the town crier is at his business, takes him and gives him a shower from head to toe, to take out all that fishy garbage smell, and then dresses him in all this finery, puts him on a palanquin, that is carried in a red velvet palanquin with velvet cushions and all gold and everything. And the boy is like, "Ha! Ha!" And the boy is told, "You're not a pauper, you're not a street urchin. Who are you? Prince." Repeat it. "Who are you?" "I am a prince." Say that one more time. "I am a prince." Did you understand that? "Yes, I am a prince." Wonderful. So the boy is given a nice breakfast. The boy is cleaned up from head to toe, and the boy, and they put some rose attar on him for good measure, dress him in smart clothes, give him a nice haircut, and then put him on this palanquin with red velvet everything. And then the town crier is going ahead and they are parading the prince, and soon a crowd gathers, and to their horror what happens? The prince jumps down from the palanquin and into the garbage can because he sees a garbage can along the way and he says, "Oh, buffet!" Means you can choose what you want. He says, "Yippee, a roadside buffet." And so saying, he jumps into the garbage can. Everybody, the crowd is horrified. What happened? They are confused. The minister is just wanting the earth to open up and to swallow him live. He says, "Oh my God, what am I going to tell the people?" And then again, a new change of clothes. Everybody is combing his hair. He's looking so, unruly. And then in his hand, he has in one hand a dead fish, another hand some rotten vegetable, and then he's also holding on to some leftover piece of chapatis and bread and everything. And the minister, slowly tries to pry that dead fish out of the hand. He is not relinquishing it. He says, "You don't know." He says, "This is for us. You can have it too since you've been so nice. I share it with you. But what will we eat when we go to the palace? You said we are going to the palace. What are we going to eat?" And slowly they have to, even though he is crying, they have to rid him of all this hoarding of the leftovers of ignorance. And then they have to, divest him of the dead fish, the dead bread, the dead vegetables, and then put him back in the palanquin and assure him that there is food everywhere at all times for him. He doesn't ever have to go to this kind of a buffet again. And in fact, he is the owner of everything. And then he hugs the garbage can. "Am I the owner of this too?" Yes. So you see that this is what is called Viparita Bhavana. He knows he is the prince. It's not that he doesn't know. But the habitual patterns of hugging every piece of garbage, that is the orientation. So here too, this person who is Brahman is told, "You are Brahman, you are Ishvara, you are that same sprout which sprouted into the pranic force of Hiranyagarbha, which is all pervasive, which is the order, which sprouted into the order, which is all knowledge, all efficiency, all consciousness, which is now in the form of this Jagat, which is also uniquely itself." That is what you are. You are that creator which sprouted out of the seed of all conscious intelligence, all knowledge, all Sat, whose material is non-separate from its ability to create. You are that. But will I also have the dead fish? I know that, but how to let go of this? This is what the quandary is. And the quandary is this precisely because the pauper doesn't exist. Where is the pauper? There is no pauper. He's wearing the clothes of the prince. Everything is the prince. He is the prince. The pauper is an as though imposter. A temporary delusion because of the circumstances. And this ajnanam is also a temporary delusion, which is what? Which is maintained because the jiva identifies with the alienation and the smallness. And this identification with the alienation and the smallness are because of the circumstances of identifying with the body-mind-sense complex, which the jiva has been supplied by the pranic order, which is again Brahman. That's what it is. And without identification, there can be no knowledge, correct? That no creation. So even for the seed of this all knowledge, which is Brahman, for that to, if we look at it as a seed, for that to sprout, that identification with the knower and the creator has to happen. And at the individual level, for one to say, "I am ignorant," the identification with the seed of that not knowing has to happen. The seed of not knowing is just the seed of what? Separation, alienation, smallness. And this is what he brilliantly talks about. And that separation is as though, ignorance is as though, all knowledge can never become ignorance. Ignorance can never become knowledge if it is real. And if it is unreal, we have to pack up shop. But we are not packing up shop. Why? Because it has an in-between, anirvachaniya quality. Ignorance is as though there. It is there because I feel like a pauper. It is not there because I am really a prince. This is what it is. So, That is very beautiful, very nice. And then, oh, I lost the page. Where are we?
25 is starting. Tasmat prana
Oh, I went back. I went backwards. Okay. तस्माच्च प्राणात् मनः मन आख्यं संकल्प विकल्प संशय निर्णय आद्यात्मकम् अभिजायते. Yeah. So now, what was the last sentence? Last sentence we have seen that this ignorance, identification with the ignorance, gives rise to the sprouts of desire and action and the fruits thereof, etc., etc., and further seeds of ignorance. So that much we saw. Abhijayate is born. So this ignorance also, as it were, because ignorance is not really born, it is called as it were. So he says Abhijayate has to be borrowed because it's only mentioned once. Anushangaha means that's the connection. Then he says, when the ignorance has been located, correct? When the ignorance has as it were emerged, because really emerged means identified with and owned up by this jiva, then what is the karana? What is the instrument that owns up the ignorance? Where is this ignorance felt? In the head? Where? In the buddhi, in the mind. In the mind. So the karana, antakarana here signified by the mind. Head, buddhi, correct, but here they say mind. The word he uses is mind. So this mind, therefore, has to be created, correct? Because what else will hold? Where is the holding pattern of the ignorance? In the mind. So from the standpoint of creation, that common mind, the cosmic mind, meaning all, the truth of all minds. Very interesting. Yeah. Your mind, my mind, dog's mind, cat's mind, meaning the psychological order, that which carries the psychological order, in which the psychological order is experienced, that receptacle called the mind, and that mind is created, and the Hiranyagarbha takes the form of all minds, which is the cosmic mind. And what do these minds have in common? Don't say ignorance, because that is already, because of the ignorance there is mind. It's a circular reasoning. Because of the ignorance there is a mind possible. And then because there is a mind, ignorance is experienced. Oh, what does that mean? Never mind. Okay, that is just a circular reasoning, because if we take anything as real, we get into this circular reasoning. It's all as though. So what do the minds, all of them, have in common? Thoughts. What kinds of thoughts? Because everybody has a thought. Yeah, sankalpa, vikalpa, samshaya, nirnaya. Thoughts of uncertainty, sankalpa, and vikalpa, thoughts of certainty and uncertainty. Should I do this or not? Should I go to class? Nah. Should I study Vedanta? No. And do I need Vedanta? Yes. Of course I need Vedanta. Who doesn't need Vedanta? I have to study. Well, on the flip side, look at the teeming millions of people. Do they have Vedanta? No. Are they successful in their jobs? Yes. Are they making money? Yes. Are they leading lives? Yes. Are they famous enough to be Googled? Yes. And so, what am I missing? Nothing. No, I don't think I'll study Vedanta. This is what is called sankalpa, vikalpa. That which is unable to be coming to a place of resolve. This is what is called the manaha. Every mind has this capacity for irresolution. A place of non-resolution is called the mind, because the Shastra is very specific what constitutes the mind. Very specific. So mind is that faculty of knowing with reference to doubts and other negative emotions. That is called the mind. That is called manaha. And then if you look at the faculty of knowing only from the standpoint of emotions, it is called Chittam. Chittam. And if you look at the faculty of knowing from the standpoint of intelligence, it is called Buddhi. And then if you look at the faculty of knowing from the standpoint of the knower, it is called Ahankara. Very good. This is what this is, the mind is always divided into fourfold. All this you will study in Tattva Bodha. So this is what it is, the fourfold way in which the mind is talked about. Chittam, Manaha, Buddhihi, and the one that owns all of this as mine, Ahankara. This is what the whole thing is. And so, this is here we are talking of the mind, the receptacle of all doubt. Because the faculty where doubts are cognized is called Manaha, mind. And so in this mind, what resides? Sankalpa and Vikalpa. I'll do this, no, I won't do this. And what is that which fuels Sankalpa and Vikalpa? Ignorance. In the form of Ragadveshas. Ignorance in the form of Ragadveshas, because the Ragadveshas have this push-pull effect. Yes? No. Because the one that says yes is different from the one that says no. Should I study Vedanta? Yes. One person says yes. And who says no? Another set of desires say no, let us go to the movies instead. You see? This is what the whole thing is. So Sankalpa, Vikalpa, and then Samshaya, doubt. Where does the doubt take place? In the mind. Yeah. Am I whole or fragmented? Samshaya. And then Nirnaya. I must be both simultaneously. Wrong Nirnaya. Nirnaya means, Nishchayena Nayati. Nirnaya, that leading to a place of Nishchaya. Is also a possibility, but it remains a possibility because that's why it's called the mind. So Samshaya and its opposite Nirnaya, and then Sankalpa and its opposite Vikalpa. This is the storehouse. This is what is in every mind. In every mind, if you go sit, you will see seeds of doubt. Yeah, seeds of indecision and doubt. So this place of constant doubt and indecision, is the common mind at the level of Adi Bhautikam. That's what you see. You see the mind in the, this is what is also, as it were, it says born, not really born. So the place of the storehouse of deliberation, doubt and determination and the lack thereof, all this, where the free will goes for a ride, is the mind. And then from the mind, further, tataha api sankalpadi atmakat manasaha satyam satyakhyam akashadi bhuta panchakam abhijayate. So tataha, from that what? This aforementioned mind, which is the storehouse of doubt and despair, Satyam. Satyam comes from the mind. What? You just said that Sat is born from the mind? How is that possible? You just said mind is born of Sat? No. Here Satyam means the lokas, fields of experience. Because first, where is the fields of experience are experienced? Where first? In the mind. Oh, how nice it will be to go to heaven. Where do you think first? After going to heaven? No. Sitting right here you think. How nice it will be if I could just glimpse of heaven. I just want to see beyond the pearly gates and come back. I don't want to stay there. Where do you experience that? Behavior, right here in the mind. So, Satyadehe. What does it say? Yeah, Satyam means Satya Akhyam. That which is called Satya. Which is what? Akashadi Bhuta Panchakam. So that which constitutes the 5 elements. And the lokas, all these things have come from what? The mind alone. And you see, that's why we shouldn't take this too seriously. Elsewhere it is said that the mind is the product of the subtle 5 elements, the operation of the subtle 5 elements. So here the purport of the Upanishad is different. Yeah. In making this mind central, it is showing the centrality of the mind as a locus of ignorance, and then also as the place where the ignorance is removed, and to be really revealed as the locus of all knowledge. Okay? Yeah. It's just that the locus is slightly out of focus. That's why it is called ignorance. So that's all he's trying to say. Don't look for the contradictions, because really speaking there is no contradiction. Okay, now tatah api sankalpadi vikalpa manasat, from the manasah, from the sankalpadi atmakam, that which is endowed with the quality of this doubt, from that mind satyakhyam akashadi panchabhutam bhuta panchakam abhijayate. So these 5 elements are born. Tasmat satyakhyat bhutapanchakat andakramena saptalokaha bhuradayah. Yeah, this we have already seen. So from that same 5 elements, which has come from what? The mind, which has come from that cosmic mind, has come what? The 7 lokas, starting with bhu, etc. Bhu, bhuhu. Next one? Okay, we'll repeat until we get this. Bhuhu, bhuvaha, suvaha, manaha, tapaha, satyam, janaha, satyam. Yeah, these are the 7 lokas. Okay? Yeah. Bhuhu ityadayah or bhuradayah, same thing. Bhuhu, etc. have come from this, because the lokas are first construed in the mind only, and so therefore it is a nod to that conscious being. And so there is not much to talk about here, it's just explaining what we have already seen. Teshu manushyadi prani varnashrama kramena karmani. Now that the lokas are there, the lokas have to be populated, correct? Yeah, starting with earth. So in succession, after the lokas are created, from the creation of the anda is what? Hiranyagarbha, the seed, the seed that is begun to sprout with knowledge. So from that, what has, so the evolution of creatures has come, and what are they? Manushyadi, starting with human beings, etc. Maybe you don't start with human beings according to Darwin, but here, since the human being is the central for the study, since the mind is central to dismiss the ignorance, that's why the human being is central here for us. Yeah. Don't say that this is anthropomorphic and anthropocentric, yeah, because who is saying that? The human being is saying that, correct? No dog is disapproving of this line from the Upanishad. Dog doesn't say, I protest. Why are they not talking of 4-footed beings? Yeah, first they should talk about me and then about this idiot. And chimpanzee should protest, I came before. No, that doesn't happen. Why? Because we are talking of the human mind. We are talking of dismissing the non-existent jagat and the non-existent, ultimately, ignorance. Both of which are connected. By what? By this divide that I am not the creator. That is the divide. Because I am the created and I associate with that which is as the object of the creation, as an effect rather than a cause, and that is being corrected as we speak. That is the job of the Upanishad. So it's using the human mind as the central playing ground for both, doubt as well as certainty, for the ignorance as well as knowledge. That ignorance which as it were overpowers the knowledge like an eclipse, and then it is dismissed by the Upanishad. The son of the Upanishad dismisses and stands, overpowers the eclipse and shines forth. And so therefore the centrality of the human being and the human mind in this. So following in this order, everything was created along with the beings, and the beings have to be divided, correct? They have to have some divisions, otherwise there will be anarchy. So then first division was between male and female, and the And the hunter said, "You are just a gatherer. I am the hunter. Yeah, you just sit and grow some grass. I am going to bring things home. I am the one who bashes up things. I take a cudgel and go and bash the first thing I see and drag it behind me. And sometimes what? It's just a squirrel. Yeah, because bad luck, bad karma. Yeah. So this is the first division based on strength. Anyone who can, this is what Darwin calls survival of the fittest. This is how the species emerged. Big fish eating up the small fish, and the dominance of anything that is strong, even in the humanoid things, anything that is strong. The male is always stronger than the female, physically. We are not talking of mentally. That's a different story. Okay? Yeah, so, and, I didn't say anything. I just said it's a different discussion. That's all. So then what? So the male is stronger physically, and then the physical brute strength, pun intended, has given rise to, all these various divisions in society. Strong, weak, moneyed, not moneyed, power, pelf. Did anyone look up pelf? Kim tat?
Wealth which is unfair means that you get that.
Pelf is that wealth which is acquired by stealth. Okay. So this is what power, pelf. All these things become dividing factors. Yeah. And then dividing factors is also by age. Young, you have to study, and you can't be restless. We don't have young and restless. We have young because youth is restless. We don't have young and restless. Young and restless means you put the fellow into the Gurukulam. That's what it is. Yeah, at age 12. Yeah, and he will just be bringing twigs for the firewood to cook, and all the restlessness will be gone. Yeah. Sit and stoke the fire next to the Guru's wife, and then all the restlessness will be gone. Bring the water for the cooking, wash the Guru's feet and the Guru's wife's feet every morning. Every restlessness is gone. Yeah, that's all it is. And then what? Then, young and married. Married means what? You become a contributor. You start contributing. You start, feeding people. You start doing yajnas. That is what it is. And then what? Old and married means you leave everything and go repair to the forest, and, study. That's why Eugene is well good at for all the vanaprasthis wannabe. Yeah, meaning you just let go. You study, you let go of your life. You have so much trust in Bhagavan that your life is going to be taken care of. And then finally, what? You drop that also and say it's just me and the sky. You don't need to depend on anything and anybody. You're not scared of anything and anybody. And that is what you grow to that place. That is called sannyasa. So these are the orders and these are the hierarchies. And then these hierarchies and orders come from that seed of Brahman, which is morphed into this as though seed of ignorance, and because of ignorance one grabs what one has, and then one defines others by what they don't have. You see, that's why we get two distinctions in society: haves and have-nots. And who has it been done by? By the original have-nots, because they really don't have the knowledge to know that everything is a have-have, win-win situation. So they define themselves in relation to what they don't have. That's what is called have-not. So these are all the distinctions come. First the ability to breathe comes, life comes, and then the food comes. Food is for whom? For the ones that is hungry. Hunger is prana. So then the food comes, and the food satiates the prana. And then what? From the prana comes the mind, because once one is well fed, the mind starts to doubt all kinds of things. And then my food, my buffet, my intelligence, and all this minus comes as the mind. And then the mind in the cosmic level is all doubt and resolve, teetering in between doubt and resolve. And from that the 5 elements come, and the 5 elements are nothing but the lokas. And the lokas means all these fields which have to be populated by these jivas who have karma. All this is just as though. So these jivas who have karma, Why do they have karma? Because they identified with the originally with the ignorance. When was original? Don't ask. There is no starting date for this. Everyone has gobs of karma, and for those gobs of karma, gobs of lokas need to be created, and in these lokas everyone comes to play, but really falls down and feels sad and runs home, mummy crying. Who is mummy? Maya Devi. And the collective mummy of ignorance, which leaves one mummified to the knowledge. And so therefore which leaves Brahman mummified, it has to be unwrapped. And so therefore this is the state. And then what happens? Then the karmas are created, because each one does something to overcome that lack. The capacity for karma is created, and then the stages of life are created, starting with the stages of life, ending to the wages of life. Everything is created. Okay? And then what? Yeah, we have already done that. Teshu. Yeah, that we have done. Next one. Karmasu cha nimitta bhuteshu amritam karmajam phalam. Yeah, karmasu, out of all the karmas, nimitta bhuteshu, that which is causally connected to the karma. What is causally connected to the karma? If karma is the cause?
Desire.
If karma is the cause, what is the effect? Ayyo Deva. Okay. So if karma is the cause, what is the effect? Karma phala is the effect. And so this karma phala is connected to karma. And so naturally, if karma and the capacity for karma are born, then what is born? The capacity to reap the effects out of this karma is also born. Okay? And then karmajam phalam yavat karmani kalpakoti shatairapi tavat phalam na vinashyanti tavat phalam na vinashyanti iti amritam. Because it repeated, I thought I could get away with reading it only once. Yeah. I said, it comes afterwards, but it also came again. Yeah, I can see, because he was exemplifying this. So then, look at the verse. Let us not go far away from the mantra. The verse says what? He's explaining here. Satyam lokaha karmasucha amritam. So karma phala is called amrita, immortal. What? Yeah, that's my question too. Why? What is the Upanishad in her senses? What is she talking about? How can karma phalas be immortal? Because that which destructs is karma phala. But he says that, what does he say? Very beautiful sentence. He says, karma sucha nimitta bhuteshu, that which comes out of karma is called phalam, which is here called amritam. And he says, yavat karmani kalpa koti shatairapi vinashyanti. Yavat means why? Why? Because these karmas do not exhaust themselves on their own even after 1,000 kalpas. Do the karmas resolve on their own?
No.
Okay. Do the karma phalas resolve on their own? No. Why? Because they are sitting in the bank of ignorance. So if you want to resolve karma phalas, what do you have to destroy? The bank. Yeah. If you want to, the money won't get destroyed. The money is called amritam. What is money? Karma money. The money that comes, the punya papa, which is sitting in the bank, will not get destroyed. The bank is made of ignorance. Walls are made of ignorance. Brick is made of ignorance. So you have to blast this bank. Yes. You cannot just hope that the karmas will resolve. They will not. You cannot hope that the karma phalas will resolve, because they ain't going to do that even in 100,000 kalpas. Therefore it is uchitam. Uchitam means appropriate to be called amritam, immortal, that which are not subject to death. And then uktameva artham upasamharati. No, artham upasam
Upasam
Jihirshuhu
Jihirshuhu
Mantraha
Mantraha
Vakshamanartham
Vakshamanartham
Aha
Aha
Upa plus Sam plus Jihirshuhu. This Upanishad is Upasam Jihirshuhu, means desirous of. Desirous of what? Concluding. Upasam Jihirshuhu is desirous of doing Upasamhara, means concluding. So with the hope of concluding this section and concluding what has all been talked about, it gives another statement. And what does it say? Yas sarvajñas sarvavit
Yes Sarvajñas Sarvavit
Yasya jnanamayam tapah
Yasya Jnanamayam Tapah
Tasmadetad brahma nama
Tasmadetad Brahma
Rupamannam cha jayate.
Rupamannam cha jayate.
That we'll see tomorrow. Yeah. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya
Purnamevavashishyate.
Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Any questions?
And could you explain, you said it, I couldn't catch it, about pantheism?
Yeah, pantheism is where you deify nature as the ultimate cause of creation. Yeah, we don't do that. It's just a series in a chain of causality designed a model designed to explain how all these things came out of this one conscious intelligence. Pantheism is where nature is taken to be a parallel reality, and in fact it's the only reality. So it is seen as the cause, a causeless cause. That is pantheism. If we say everything has come out of the five elements, it is a caused cause. For us it's not the causeless cause. The only causeless cause for us is who? Brahman, which is free of being anything. Yeah. So when you say pantheism, it takes all these isms. Take the Jagat to be real, to be ultimate. Yeah, we are just waiting for it to go away. They are trying to establish how, they are giving it a cushion to sit on. Yeah. We are pulling the rug from under its feet. Yeah. Yes, see you tomorrow. Oh. Any other questions?
Well, a little bit.
Little bit question, okay?
You were talking about if you lining up to get an iPhone and the shop closes,
Yeah.
you need to take that as a sign that you're not meant to have an iPhone.
That would be an intelligent sign. Yes.
But there's so many signs, so how do you know which is a sign and which is an impetus to try harder?
That will come when the desires clear up, when the fog of desires clear up a little bit. Then that which is those desires which are sattvic in nature and which you really would like to pursue and which means something to you in terms of even on the relative level, some accomplishment, some ambition, some goal, and that you can do without giving yourself and others a heartache. Those are the desires. Those desires which you can fulfill without too much ayasa, effort, and without transgression of dharma, the righteousness of being. Those are okay to fulfill. Even the iPhone is not a wrong thing, but for a Vedantin, these are all signs. Like if you go there and it closes right in front of your face, either you should come, maybe it's a small sign, maybe I should come back another day. Okay, you try another day, that day also it closes behind your back, and then what you have to do, you have to examine it. So therefore the lessons, Bhagavan is very kind. The lessons come repeatedly, because Bhagavan is compassionate enough to know that everything including Vedanta classes have to be repeated and only then the person gains the knowledge. Yeah, that's what it is. So first there is a tumultuous desires of all kinds, each one falling over the other, and the mind is crowded. But then when you allow it to sit, some desires just fall out. They have a falling out. So they fall out, and then the ones that stay, you can do this viveka. Which one do I really want? And why should I waste my time pursuing this? This is finite anyway. This is useless anyway. And gaining this will give me a headache anyway. So might as well get the object of desire and aspirin at the same time, because this is going to give me a headache. So like this the Viveka slowly comes. And this Upanishad herself will tell you step by step how to gain Viveka. So no worries. Yeah. Keep attending classes. Yes, that's all I have to say. Anything else? Okay. See you tomorrow. Now you can bring me my breakfast.